Standard EFL reading lessons often bypass the instruction of cognitive skills by defaulting immediately to testing. The common routine of assigning a text and following it with a checklist of questions measures what a student understood, but it does not teach them how to understand. This timeline shows the typical distribution of a 60-minute lesson. The clock is quickly eaten up by the teacher explaining vocabulary, providing background, and reading aloud. By the time the students actually engage with the text, the central activity of silent reading has been squeezed into a tiny fraction of the hour. Ray Williams proposed a framework to reverse this classroom dynamic. His core principle centers the learner's cognitive process by making the act of reading the primary activity of the lesson. Reading is an individual skill, similar to swimming or playing an instrument. It cannot be acquired by listening to an instructor's verbal explanation. It requires sustained, uninterrupted practice time to develop the necessary fluency and speed. Cognitive reading strategies only activate when two prerequisites are met. The student must have a genuine interest in the topic, and they must possess a baseline recognition of the language used. Aligning text selection with the reader's existing interests is a data-driven process. An interest inventory at the start of the term identifies what students already read in their native language, such as technology or sport, process text automatically. Without this recognition, the student cannot focus their mental energy on higher-level strategies like skimming or predicting. Building this threshold requires a systematic approach to new language. Students can pull target vocabulary directly from the reading, note the surrounding sentence structure, and build word family connections to ensure these terms become part of their permanent sight vocabulary. Matching text interest and reaching this vocabulary threshold are mandatory steps. If either is missing, the student will struggle to move past basic decoding to actual comprehension. The effectiveness of a lesson depends on whether the teacher treats the text as a linguistic object, known as TALO, or a vehicle for information, known as TAVI. In a TALO lesson, students mine the text for specific grammar points, such as identifying all instances of the present perfect. While useful for language awareness, this approach does not develop the specific cognitive strategies required for independent reading. TAVI focuses instead on meaning reconstruction. For example, when students read about the technical specifications of the SLV-3 satellite launcher, the goal is to extract and reorganize the author's message. To prove comprehension, students fill in a blank technical specification grid. They must navigate the text to find details on the rocket's 4 distinct stages and propellant amounts, physically mapping the information into the matrix. This makes the invisible process of reading visible and measurable. For this cognitive work to happen, the teacher must adopt a difficult discipline, remaining completely silent during the reading block. This shifts the instructor's role to that of a learning manager. During a 25-minute silent reading block, the teacher conducts a monitoring walk. You observe the room and note where students pause or struggle, gathering data for a coaching session after the reading is complete. True reading instruction happens when the teacher stops talking and requires the students to actively structure the information themselves. Historically, sourcing authentic texts at the perfect difficulty level while designing custom tasks like these took hours of preparation time. This friction often forced teachers back into the testing routine. AI models now eliminate this barrier. You can take a complex article on a high-interest topic and prompt the AI to rewrite it for a specific CEFR level. It simplifies the sentence structure while keeping all critical data intact. Then, it can generate a TAVI task based on that text, producing a flowchart or technical grid that forces students to interact with the information, rather than just answering yes or no. In your next lesson plan, use AI to level 1 high-interest text and create 1 mapping task. Set a timer for 25 minutes of silent reading and use that time to observe your students without speaking. By integrating these tools with a TAVI mindset, you give students the space to build their own comprehension. The goal of every reading teacher is to reach the point where the learner no longer requires their assistance.